Welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm your host, Gerald Scott, and together we will dive into the lives and careers of the jazz legends who have left a rhythmic imprint on the world. Be prepared to reminisce on the highs and the lows of their musical journey and the trials that sculpted their timeless musical gems. We'll preserve the legacy of these extraordinary maestros and find inspiration in the melodies of their lives. Subscribe now and never miss a beat. Now, let's get to the show. Hi, everybody. This is Darrell Scott. You are listening to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. And if you're a fan of this show and live in, I'm just going to say the Northeast Ohio area, you've seen this guy. That's the guy in the other picture. His name is Riley Richard. He plays some solo stuff. He plays with a group called Forecast. If you want to talk about a rising star in the world of jazz, he is that guy. Riley, how you doing today?
Well, thank you for having me.
Good, not a problem. So, sax player. How long have you actually played the saxophone?
28 years to be exact.
So you started when you were 4?
Well, I started music when I was 4. I started off with the piano and then I moved to the flute. And then when I was 10, I picked up the saxophone.
So why that path? Why ending up with the saxophone?
Well, it was an easy transition from the flute. The fingering is very similar between the flute and the saxophone. And it was something that my dad saw within me because my dad is a huge jazz lover, that it might be beneficial for me to try out the saxophone. So, at the time I said, why not? Let's give it a go and see what happens.
And it's going very, very well for you. So uh, rumor has it that you were somewhat of a shy child, not willing to be real open with people, kind of an introvert, we'll call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you go from being an introvert to now standing in front of hundreds, thousands of people playing saxophone. Can you talk about that progression? What got you from being that, we'll say, shy child to now being able to perform it in front of large numbers of people?
Yeah, it was quite the journey, and it's something that I'm still getting used to this day. But I think because of jazz and its freedom of expression made it easier for me to not so much pay attention to the audience, but give the audience an artist perspective through, how can I say it, through the saxophone playing. So, instead of me being nervous about the audience, I went out there and just did my thing the best way I could on the saxophone.
Hmm.
Uh, it helped me overcome those barriers of actually focusing on the audience and all the people that's out there. Jazz is a free form, thing. It's a form of expression where you can just be free about yourself. So it helped me overcome those obstacles that I had early on.
How's the progression going? Are you feeling more comfortable in front of people?
Yeah, the more and more that I do it, I feel more comfortable. I'm so used to being the side guy where I don't have to talk and I don't have to interact with the audience.
Right.
So now that I'm having my own shows that I have to talk
Hmm.
and interact with the audience, it's becoming a fun thing. Um, uh, it's becoming a fun thing for me now. So, it's been a progression and it's been a journey, but we're getting through it.
That's all you can do is you just got to keep pushing and keep getting through it.
Yeah.
Um, I want to talk about the that turning point, so to speak, because to me, that's what we all go through. You go through that. There are those of us who are gregarious from birth. I mean, don't get me wrong. People will find it hard to believe. I truly am an introvert, truly. But I remember being in 6th grade, and all of a sudden we were putting on some kind of performance for parents, and the teachers made me be the MC for the show. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Why are you doing this to me? I'm scared to death.
Yeah.
So that's where I got comfortable, at least got started in dealing with that. And they gave me a couple of, I'll call them jokes to say to kind of ease into it. But I know firsthand that that is tough to do because, and maybe I'll use the funny thing. So maybe you say something funny and nobody laughs, and as opposed to that exposing you, that makes you go more into your shell about being in front of people. Talk about the ups and downs of doing that.
It's just really knowing how to read the room, for me at least.
Hmm.
There's been times when I've been completely embarrassed on stage to where I thought that I was doing a great job.
Right,
And after the song was over, the audience didn't really budge or didn't give me no type of reaction.
right.
Then and I've had the opposite, obviously, the opposite effect. But I've learned that just because you don't get a reaction doesn't mean they're not enjoying themselves.
Hmm.
It's all based on the individual itself. So, I've been learning to give myself some grace and some patience and being kind to myself on that because I used to kill myself about, man, I'm not good enough. I'm not doing enough. I'm not at this level where it should be because I'm not moving the audience. And
Hmm.
it's not necessarily the case.
And that growth and progression for you was helped where you got an introduction to. I remember playing his album first here in Cleveland, Najee. Talk about the beginning of that relationship and how that, and I'll say mentorship, is helping you now.
Yeah, I first met Najee in 2016. Well, actually, I met him earlier in my life, but he doesn't remember that. And
Hmm.
so I met him officially in 2016. He was doing a show here in Cleveland, and my manager at the time, she knew him, and she was like, "You need to listen to this guy." And he was like, "Bring him to the show." He brought me on stage, and I was able to sit in with him, which was an experience for myself, because um, that type of level and that type of stage was something new for me.
Right.
And and so, just cultivating the relationship, and he took me under his wing afterwards. We stayed in touch, and I started doing shows with him, and he came back to Akron, Ohio. And funny story is, after the show in Akron, after I sat in with him in Akron,
Hmm.
the Tuesday after, they were going to Nigeria, and he asked me to go, but I didn't have a passport.
Hmm.
So that was an experience in itself. And not only did he invite me, but he invited me to play, which was the Nigerian national anthem. And that's something that I had to learn right away.
Wow.
And so, it's moments like that that fast track you and get you ready really quickly because you really don't have time to prepare.
Hmm.
And so you have to be really good learning on the fly and improvising. And that's what jazz is
That's
really
what
all
jazz is. Right. Did you feel that pressure all of a sudden? You're sitting there enjoying the show, watching him, watching a guy you idolize, we'll say, and all of a sudden he says, "Hey, Riley, come up and join me." And
about.
do you freeze? Do you go, I'll wait a minute, or do you just go up there and be you?
You wanna say all those things, but you may never get this opportunity again. So
Right.
have to you have to push through it and get up there and give it your best shot.
Okay. I'm going to tell you a secret. You did a show here the other night, and my producer was there, and she said on a particular song, Superstar,
Yeah.
that you may have held a note. She said 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay.
Seriously? 5 minutes?
It's possible. I've done it before. I've
Yeah.
done.
Talk. And I think that's the thing that we as listeners don't understand. What is your breathing technique then? Because don't get me wrong, I can't hold a note. I got to breathe after saying 12 words.
Oh,
Ugh,
man. Actually, I never practiced that particular technique. I learned it on stage with forecast. So,
seriously.
yeah, so I have a habit here in my private practicing. We have this thing called long tones where we
Hmm.
just hold the note as long as we can, but it's never to sustain it. It's just to really just fill the diaphragm with air and just to get a consistency of a note out as much as possible. And so I've gotten really good with that over the years, just building that as a daily habit. And we were playing a song. I was on stage with Forecast and we were playing a song, and I was holding a note, and then I never had the tendency to, to hold it longer. It
Right.
was I was just holding, and I thought to myself, "Hey, I can hold this longer." It was kind of a mental thing, and it's just something that just snowballed into what it is now.
I was gonna say, do you think about that when you're in the middle of doing that, or is it just, I'm just gonna do what I can for as long as I can, and this is what it will be?
Yeah, at the time, you just do what you can. That's the mental about it. That's the mental process. But in that particular moment, I noticed that my body was allowing me to do more than
Hmm.
I was used to doing. And so I just kind of took advantage of that moment and and really understood the concept of the technique of actually blowing air out and taking in air at the same time. So you would fill the jaws with air, push out as you take in air through the nose. So it's a weird situation that I happened to learn on stage really quickly.
I can't even imagine taking air in and blowing it out in the same breath, we'll say. Um, I just I marvel at that, and to be perfectly honest, the saxophone is one of my favorite jazz instruments. So I've seen this happen, and when you're sitting there listening, and then we begin to root for you
Yeah.
as the audience, going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And don't get me wrong, I never want you to pass out on stage. I just don't. But that's what I'm thinking, that he need to let go and get back to doing what he's doing. So that is a talent, I'm sure, that has thoroughly benefited you. Now, early on, how long ago did you write "Captivate Me"?
So Captivate Me was written by a friend of mine, Darren
Hmm.
Ron,
Hmm.
also great saxophonist and producer, Grammy nominated producer. And I think that song happened for us either 2019 or 2020,
Hmm.
right before the pandemic, if I'm right. So yeah, 2019, I would say that song happened for us.
And that went on to be the first of many number one songs for you on the Billboard charts.
Yeah, and I've had number ones before Captivate Me, just not for Billboard. So
Okay.
Billboard was my first number one for Billboard.
Okay. All right. Describe that feeling, because how old were you at the time? And all of a sudden now you kind of poke your chest out like, I got a number one record. I got a number. I'm doing this.
Oh, I've gotten to have it, Najee, since being under Najee's tutelage, he's groomed me to not have expectations when it comes to these type of things. So when I got the email about having the number one record, I was really surprised and shocked because I wasn't expecting it. It was like I did my part, as releasing and getting it out to radio, but I wasn't really expecting the outcome that it had. So it was a surprise to us all. It really was.
You touched on radio, and back in 2019 there were vehicles
Yeah.
in radio that you could get your music out to. I've talked to several different people, because we're going to talk about streaming now, who I want to say are not necessarily fans or have not adjusted to the way streaming works. But you're the opposite, I've heard. You I don't want to say you don't do a CD, you don't do 12 songs. You do a single, put it out there, wait 2, 3 months, whatever it is, then do another single. How did you adapt that philosophy?
Well, it really it was an observation, um, and just due to economical, situations. And
Hmm.
so it was an observation because as streaming became popular, we began to notice that people were only picking their favorite song off the CD and not buying the entire CD.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense for a person to invest a ton of money into 12 songs when the individual is only picking one song to buy off the CD. So I said if I release one song at a time, it would benefit me more and I wouldn't have to kill myself about putting
Right.
out an entire album, you know? So that's how we came up with that decision. And it seemed like it was the right decision because that's now what mostly everyone is doing now. Mostly you don't really find too many people putting out full albums because it's the way streaming works.
Right.
It's not, you know, it's not worth it.
Not saying that I'm a fan of that, but I guess I will grow into it. But I understand why um, musicians are doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you are young enough to have be going through this. You have some phenomenal success. I really do mean that. Is there pressure to maintain, or are you just going to continue to be you, and it doesn't matter what the masses think, so to speak? I'm just going to put out the music that I like.
No, I put pressure on myself and
Oh,
I do it purposely, you know, because I want to be able to grow. I want to be able to grow the right way. Um, and I always keep the people in mind, but I also have a group of people around me who pays attention to the nuances of the music business.
hmm,
And so as I'm worrying about the physical playing, if I'm doing this right, doing that right, I have individuals around me who are saying, this is what's happening, and this is how we can incorporate your philosophy into what's working today, if that makes sense. And
yeah.
so, yeah, I put the pressure on myself because I want to be the best that I can be, and I'm also working with producers who will push me to the next level.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's always pressure when it comes to writing a song for me.
So is there a I just wonder things about musicians. I sit there and listen and blah blah blah. But when you talk about that pressure, if you release a single, it's done, it's pressed, it's out there. And
Yeah,
then when you go to play it live, do you ever go, I should have put that note over here. I should have done this. Do you ever want to go back and do it over?
always,
Really?
all always. There's always something in my music where I go, I should have did it that way. I should have done it that way. But see, you know, the way that this thing works is that I have producers who are looking out for my best interest.
Right.
You know, because I may go overboard with recording a bunch of takes and they're like, "Hey, listen, you're doing too much. You know, this is not what the song is required." This is, you know, they'll tell me, you know, they'll give me feedback. And so why I think I want to do something differently or would have wanted to do something differently, what I needed to do was perfect for the moment at that
Hmm.
yeah.
I don't envy you in that. Um, because it's like going to if you go to the same artist show for a couple of different days and they play something a little different each day and you go, I want to hear that on the record. Yet
Yeah.
I still
Yeah.
go to shows and go, I want them to sound like they do on,
Yes.
and I don't know what to call it anymore, record, streaming, CD, album.
Or
I'm
song.
yeah.
You want to interpret the song how you heard it on radio. You want to hear it live. Yeah. Yeah.
You're young. I realize that Najee is one of your mentors, your influences. Are there others? Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I saw,
yeah.
you know, Cleveland in general. If anybody lived in Cleveland, especially early on, you know, there were many great saxophonists in the Cleveland area. And I've had the privilege to really just take a back seat and observe most of these saxophonists from the Eddie Backus Juniors, the Russell Thompsons, the Keith McKellys, the Jermaine Lockharts. I've had, you know, the Ken Legrands, you know, from Horns and Things. I've had the pleasure of seeing these guys firsthand on stage, and then I've had, you know, the guys in the industry, your Najees, you know, your Gerald Albrights, your Kenny Garrett's, your Dave Kaj, your Darren Ryan. So I've been able to have these conversations and have conversations with a lot of these guys, and I've learned a lot along the way. Yeah.
don't please don't take this the wrong way. You look 14. You do. You look 14. So every time I look at you and I'm hearing you saying this, you are wiser than your years on earth. You
Thank you.
are. Um, there's a there's also a quiet confidence that I hear, not only in speaking to you, but in the music that I've listened to. I think you have a very, very, very bright future.
I appreciate
But what's left to do?
I think what I need to do is to put out a full album. Because my audience, my fan base is used to me just putting out singles.
Hmm.
The better the singles become, I'm starting to realize that people want more.
Right. Oh yeah.
So, for me, it was okay to put out one song at a time and grow from that. Now I'm getting to the point to where I need to put out more than one song.
Right.
So that's something I'm in the process of doing right now.
When you get that CD together, please let us know. We'll do whatever we can to get it out there. The other thing, with that being said, how much do you have in your musical library that you can say, I'm just going to go over to the closet over here and I got 6 songs already, um, and it'll take me a minute to do whatever. Do you
I
have any storage?
can tell you it's more than 6 songs, that's for
I,
sure.
oh, I'm just saying.
We work on music every day, so this is what we do, and
Hmm.
so how you and I are talking online right now, uh, me and Darren, we do this on camera every day,
Oh,
just hashing out ideas. Najee, he'll chime in, hashing out ideas. And I've been working with Barry Eastman as of lately, and
oh, okay.
so we have this team, that's like, really trying to make this thing happen the right way.
The other thing is this: back in the day when I was growing up, 100,000 years ago, we'd meet at a studio and musicians would fly in or whatever, and you've got bass player, guitar player, lead guitar, piano, whatever. You're all in the same room, or you're all in somehow. Somebody might be in this room over here by themselves. You guys don't do that anymore, do you? You can. The
Oh,
computer is a wonderful thing because you can record a track, and somebody else can record a track, and then somebody mixes it down. Is that really how it works now?
really mostly how it works now. It's only rare that you get all the guys in. It has to be a really, really special project to get everybody, because everybody has different schedules now.
Right.
Everybody recording or, have personal things going on in their life. So doing it this way is very convenient because you're able to work along, a schedule that's more suitable for the musician.
Now, if you lay down your track, have the other people laid down some of theirs? Or how do you know what to play to if you don't hear them or hear that music?
Yeah, so there is a process. So I will get when the song is being produced for me, I will get something called the bare bones,
Hmm.
which is basically the structure of the song. And then I'll lay my part, and then everyone else will build around it to make it feel like everybody was in one room.
Do you ever need to have that human factor to, I don't know, maybe it gives you a little more maybe it causes you to mellow it out or something like that? Or is it good enough? Is this process formed enough that you can just go by what other people have played?
I think it is for what it is right now. I think I will get to a point to where I will be able to have everybody in one room and get a different feel than what we've been getting. Um, but it's all situational at this point, and budgets come into play,
Uh,
airfare, room and board, you know, the list of the doing it this way cuts down, it's less headache,
right.
y- than the traditional way or the way it was done in years past.
That's got to be the easiest part, because then if so, have you ever had to play with somebody that you didn't like? maybe like is not the right word, but that maybe you have a disagreement with or something like that. But then now you don't have to see them. Here, lay down your track and go away.
Well, unfortunately for me, I've never had that experience.
Okay.
Every with has been really, really cool, really, really honest, because that's something that I desire. You know, the song can't be good if the musicians on there are not honest and
Hmm.
honest with you. So I haven't had that experience, and I've been really fortunate because the producers that I deal with, I don't necessarily have to deal with the other musicians,
Right.
with the producer, and the producer deals
With
with
the
the
other. Right.
yeah. So there's a process to what we got going on. So I've been fortunate not to have that problem.
You're also fortunate to be just so good, just so good. Um, where can our listeners find your music? How is it available? How can we go back and do you have a website? Do you have an email address? Tell people how they can get a hold of it.
All my music is on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, Tidal, basically any music streaming service. You can find Riley Richard. Um, it's really sad that the physical product is being phased out. You can usually only get those at a concert of mine.
Hmm.
So you really won't see any physical product just because they're not even building cars with CD players anymore.
Don't get me wrong. It's funny that you say that. I think I realized that about 3 months ago, and it's just something that just didn't dawn on me. And I heard somebody say it. So then, of course, I run out to my car, and the car's in the drive when I go, none of them,
Yeah,
none of them.
yeah, yeah.
We now have USB jacks and mini USBs, and you just download music. And that, I don't know. Sometimes I like to hear the snap crackle pop up of,
Yeah.
of
It would
music.
be nice. It would be nice, man. But you never know with music because music works in circles. So it may come back around at some point.
I hope so, because there was that period of time, 80s, mid 80s, where the synthesizer was everything. It was the drummer. It was everything. And now we've gotten kind of back into I need to feel real musicians and real music. But now you sit here in Ohio, somebody else can be in Chicago, can be in LA, can be in Louisiana to create a great song. What how if there was one person, one saxophonist
Okay.
who has the is your goal, we'll say it that way.
Okay.
Who might that be?
It would have to be Najee.
Hmm.
You know, um, Even as a kid, when I wasn't really into it,
Hmm.
you can still understand his importance to where we are now. If it wasn't for Najee, a lot of saxophonists wouldn't exist. Because he was like an R&B saxophonist. He wasn't necessarily quote unquote smooth jazz. He was an R&B saxophonist, and
Hmm.
with the covers he did of Anita Baker
Right,
stuff blew up and created a door for other artists to come through.
right.
To me, that's the pinnacle because it was something genuine and it was something unique. It was new, it was fresh, and it was something that everyone else benefited off of.
I really want to get up and go. I have somewhere in this room uh that CD,
Okay.
blue cover, him standing to the side. I think
Is
I have the first three.
that Tokyo Blue?
I have Tokyo Blue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and here's my thing. I'm in this room of music, and
Yeah.
maybe at one point I'll be able to show people all the stuff I have.
Yeah.
The problem is, and I find that there are other people who do this. You put one on, you play one song, mm, makes you think of this song. You go and get this one. So by the time you're done having this musical experience, you got covers and CDs and albums all over the floor.
Yeah.
And it's more of a pain to put them all back in place. Because don't get me wrong, I guess I'll say it. I'm anal.
Okay.
All my stuff's in alphabetical order.
Okay. Okay.
Um, but that's what we do. So that will be truly interesting. Riley, wish you the best of luck, man. I really I will keep my eye on you. As I said, this podcast, and there's more to come. We'll do whatever we can. I dude, you're good. And like I said, I'm partial to saxophone players, so and I will get out and see you either as on your solo stuff or with Forecast and tell them not to talk about me too much. Um, the one thing I want to close with though, I'm following you on Facebook, and it seems as though every third picture you're
Yeah,
wearing a Browns jersey.
huge
Brown?
fan,
Are you a Browns fan?
huge fan, huge fan.
I'm old. Who's your favorite Browns player?
So to the players that I can remember,
Exactly. Right.
I'm a Nick Chubb fan first,
Right. Not a problem.
and I'm also a Kareem Hunt fan. I also was a Baker Mayfield fan, but I liked his mentality. He just to the rest of us Clevelanders, his mentality didn't match his skill set. So yeah. Then this Denzel Ward. I'm a fan of a lot of Browns players.
It
Yeah.
is is sports kind of a release decompression area that you can go to and kind of, let's say, forget about music, and I'm just going to kind of immerse myself in sports and kind of get away from everything?
Well, sports is something that I wanted to do as a kid. My parents made the executive decision for me to be in music.
And what was your sport growing up?
Football.
Football? And what position would you have played?
Back.
Huh?
Running back for sure.
Are you from Cleveland?
From Cleveland.
We'll talk off the air about that. I don't want people to know all your business. Um, Once again, best of luck to you. Um,
Thank you. And you know what? Before you go, I see that you have Grover
yeah,
behind you.
yeah.
When I was a kid, I listened to a lot of Knucklehead, a lot of Wine Light, Reed Seed, Mr. Magic, of course. I listened to a lot of his songs.
I am so much a fan of his. I have between CDs and albums,
Yeah.
I probably have 20. I
Really?
go back to Secret Place, testing my memory. Live at the it's not the Bijou, but it's a live album.
Okay.
Um, but then I have he did kind of a straight ahead one, which I'm not gonna remember now.
Okay.
But Skylark and Come Morning, which is the one behind me. I
Yeah.
He was the one. I don't want to. How do I say this? When I made the true switch from, let's say, R&B, because I was a big Temptations fan, big Earth, Wind and Fire fan, and I heard Mr. Magic,
Okay.
and I'm like, that is such. And the thing is, it's like the first lengthy song that I really listened to
Yeah.
because it's seven Knucklehead 750. Been in radio too long. 751. I think the
Yeah.
live version of Mr. Magic is 829. But it
Yeah.
was just, and then he was such a cool guy. I have to tell this story. My life is nothing but stories. So when I was doing radio, I had the opportunity to interview.
Okay.
So it's a phone interview. So we're talking and everything. I'm asking a bunch of questions about the new release and blah blah blah. And at the day I was doing the interview was the day Nelson Mandela got released.
Really?
So yeah. So don't get me wrong. Every now and then, you just want to ask questions to see if people are involved and engaged. And I said, there's a pause, and I go, do you have any feeling on the fact that Nelson Mandela got released today? I mean, do you have any, feelings about this?
Yeah.
And there's like a 10-second pause, and I'm like, I've just destroyed myself because he didn't say anything. And I'm like, I'm just done. And he goes, I've done like 7 or 8 interviews today, and no one's asked me that. And then he
Really?
went on for 20 minutes
Wow.
to talk about that. So and that's the other thing. There's a side of musicians that people don't know about.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
somebody kind of has to be, and I don't want to say daring, but every now and then you got to be able to ask questions.
Yeah.
Before we talked, I asked you, was there anything that you don't want to talk about? I will respect that. But
Yes.
then if I find this little nugget that I think would be beneficial for people to hear, because trust me, the next time somebody downloads your song or the next time somebody sees you, they're going to be like, he's a football fan. He's a Nick Chubb fan.
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
get a different perspective when you are physically in front of the person. And that's my goal. It really is. And I've done enough of these and I've heard enough knucklehead stories and tried my best to make people laugh, because I
yeah.
think laughter is the best way to break the ice. Once again, Riley Richards, thank you. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time. Folks,
Problem.
you've been listening to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm Darrell Scott. Join us again next week right here, and we'll talk to another jazz musician. Thank you for tuning in to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I hope you enjoy these stories and soulful melodies that grew through the doors of time. If you want to stay connected with the latest updates and episodes, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. Until next time, I'm Darrell Scott.